So today we're doing another reaction video. It is Peter Attia again. Christian found a different video of Peter Attia. In this one, he's talking to Stuart McGill, who is a PhD biomechanist.
I
I
think
don't know
so.
what his
Yeah.
title is. Yeah, it super common to hear like the McGill Big Three on like social media, or if you go to your local PT that maybe is a little outdated, they might yell at you about the McGill Big Three. And so today we're going to discuss a blind reaction video of Peter Tia talking about deadlifting with Stuart McGill.
Yeah. And this was my turn to pick the video, and I wanted to pick something at least somewhat spicy. And this one has, I think, some good points we can go back and forth on and just try to provide additional context for people about this stuff. In general, I think Peter Attia does a really good job. He means well, but when he gets into the rehab space or the injury prevention space, I really don't think he's that helpful. He puts a lot of outdated thoughts into the world that I feel can be quite detrimental for people, especially folks that are in the early middle ages. He advocates against a lot of things that we know to be really helpful. And then Dr. Stuart McGill generally also means well. He's trying to help people. I'm sure he helps loads of people as well, but he also perpetuates a lot of myths and misconceptions around low back pain and how to help people. And he's also way too confident in the way he delivers his message, which I mean is good for business, and it's is good for some people to latch onto a concept to try to get better. But the truth is that his approach is not that effective in the grand scheme of low back pain. We have tons of evidence to support that. And so I just wish that he would not be so ardent in his message delivery.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And I think that for me, it's whenever I listen to someone or see someone online on a podcast and um, they talk about either like movements or lifts or different techniques in like rehab space, whatever it is. And if they have to use like this like fear mongering technique of like if you deadlift, your back is gonna fall apart in the next 10 years, which is kind of what this video is all about. And so like if that is like one of your base points for like your arguments, which seems to be a lot of Stuart McGill's points that he likes to make when he argues for his way of treatment and against other ways of treatment, is a lot of it is just kind of this like fear-based approach, like telling people how messed up they're gonna be if they, lift a certain way, move a certain way, do a certain thing. And I don't know, for me, I feel like the people who can make good arguments based on the research and what they know and know that it's this very gray realm, it's not so black and white. Um, I think those are the people that really know their stuff.
Yeah, I think you made a good point about being gray, where you really know someone knows what they're talking about when they know how gray the field is. However, you can't just say, oh, yeah, it depends on all these different things. You can do this or that. You got to still have an opinion and a direction with which to get people going. And that's something that I think we really try to do, where we know how gray our field is. We know that we can't get everyone better with just the things that we know alone. Um, and we admit that, but we also have very solid opinions and foundation of evidence and experience that we like to build upon and guide our clients. And we just have to make a call and move forward. You can't just be stuck in the gray zone. Anyway, so let's go right to the first point. So the first thing that Peter Attia says is that he feels like there's a narrow operating window with the deadlift for injury. And it seems like the general theme from them is that the older you get, meaning after, let's say, 30, 40, the greater your risk of injury with deadlifting is, and you really should not do those kinds of movements, and you should do other things instead. And I don't understand where they get that from.
I don't
There
either.
really isn't a whole lot of research to say anything like that. And like, it just goes against the fundamental thing that every human does, which is like we pick things up. We bend forward at the waist, and we pick things up, and then we carry them.
Hmm.
That is a deadlift. You are doing that every single freaking day of your life. And if you aren't building some kind of resilience there, you are more likely to be injured. That is just a fundamental rule of how human adaptation occurs. And like the fact that people still perpetuate these ideas that you should be avoiding certain movements at some arbitrary age, I don't understand how they have such a strong opinion.
No, I agree. I have a question for you, Christian. Were we born with rods in our back? Were we born with
We
the
were, it's a
lack of
flexible
being
rod.
able to?
It's a flexible
Yeah,
rod
yeah.
that we are supposed to keep completely rigid every moment of our lives by having an incredibly strong and recruited and highly activated transverse abdominis.
Mm.
And if you ever make that rod flexible by bending forward, you are going to incur such insane shear force at your spine that it will literally explode. You will herniate every disc, and apparently, according to Dr. Stuart McGill, you will need to get hip replacements. I don't know how, but yes.
Dude, you might get a call and get recruited by Stuart McGill now to be on his PR team. Man, I love it. I'm glad we picked this video. I'm glad you picked this video. Yeah, I don't know how. Well, first, I just want to stick before we get into the whole hip replacement fiasco. I just want to talk quick about this idea of deadlifting and just expand on what you already said, Christian. You talked about, we pick stuff up, we, we bend over, even if you keep your back straight. And that's what I was alluding to with like metal rods in the back. And like, even if you do that, but like, let's say you get up from a chair, right? There's no way that you're standing up from a chair without ever getting any sort of like anterior displacement of that thorax and going over your thighs a little bit. You have to off weight your butt, right, to stand up. Like, unless you're using your arms, you're doing like a tricep dip and you're pushing yourself up. Um, but like, if you're just standing up from a chair, like, guess what? You're putting this scary shear force into the low back, right? I think Stuart McGill talked about playing with your grandchildren when you're 80 and getting up off the floor. If you're 80 years old and you're gonna go to pick up your grandchild off the floor, you're gonna get up and down from off the floor. Like, guess what? That's like a body weight deadlift. You're literally doing the same thing. If you want to pick up your grandchild from off the floor, you're you're doing another deadlift there. Like, I just don't know why we again demonize things like the deadlift, like spinal flexion. And this is where there's that gray area. But we even talked about this in the last podcast, Christian. But I just want to bring it up again because I think it's a great point. But like, where does it stop, right? Like, if it's like, oh, deadlifting isn't good, well then, should we not ever bend our back? Should we not ever get down to the floor? Should we not ever pick something up? When do we just like lie in a hospital bed and just have the hospital bed move us around everywhere, right? When do we stop just being human altogether? Because like, when we start putting these like scary labels on these different movements, like, you could take this to the nth degree and go down that path and say you should never do this, or this, all because you should not ever deadlift. Like, and maybe that's a little bit too extreme to say not ever deadlift. I don't know if that's exactly what they're saying, but you get my point. It's like that slope is so slippery. Rather than worrying about where that cutoff is, why don't we just make people resilient and be able to deadlift in the first place? I don't see where the big problem lies within that.
The whole like you shouldn't deadlift argument is crazy to me because it's like, what life do you live?
Exactly.
Like, are
Yeah.
you? I mean, okay, I know Peter Attia for sure is incredibly wealthy. He doesn't probably have to lift anything if he doesn't want to. But people like me and you, like, I have to lift things. I have to do yard work. I have to
I got
move
split wood,
is
dude.
in bed.
You got split some wood.
Dude, I got to carry wood. There are so many things that I have to pick up and put down. We have to lift patients and move them around in awkward positions. It's like
Yeah.
the the vast majority of people on this planet have to pick shit up and put it down. They have to move their backs. They have young children. You can't just squat your children all the time. That's not how getting to the ground works, like getting into a crib or a bassinet. So like we have to do these things. And if you have to do them, you have to make sure that you are resilient in those positions, and avoiding those movements entirely is the antithesis of that. It is setting you up for failure. And I will say, I do think part of their rationale is that, especially in the example about like the low back pain with the 50-year-old wants to set a deadlift PR, but then Stuart McGill is like, well, do you want to play with your grandchildren? You can't have both. There's also this element of we have to save ourselves from our own egos. And the fact that you want to deadlift and you want to maybe get a PR in your 50s suggests that you have an ego that is going to come back to bite you, and you just need to save yourself from yourself and not deadlift. It's like, what? What kind of argument is
Mm-hmm.
that? You mean to tell me that
Mm-hmm.
people don't have any self-control? I can't see how that is a valid argument in any way.
Stuart McGill basically says something along the lines of like, yeah, so I brought him out to go walk backwards up a hill. He found out how difficult that was, and I think he believes me in the fact that he has to, do X, Y, and Z, and I think he's going to be really athletic. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I don't know if he cares about being athletic. Like, I think he has activities he enjoys doing. Like, maybe he just enjoys resistance training, and part of that is deadlifting. And to me, I told you this before the podcast, Christian. I was like, I would hate to be a patient of McGill's. That would, like, if I told him something, or I'm like, hey man, I think I want to try and, I don't know, I want to try and squat more. And he immediately was just like putting me down and telling me how stupid I am for wanting to squat more. Just be like, F me, I guess. I'm just going to take my ball and go home. Then he goes on further. He discusses how deadlifting is going to ruin your hips and your back. You're going to have hip replacements and all this other stuff. Well, isn't one of the things that we know about when we have these imaging studies that like this whole idea of like arthritis or like degeneration of your joints, if this stuff is true what he's saying, and then why doesn't like completely sedentary individuals just have pristine hips and low backs, right? Like they're not moving at all, they're just chilling, they're just hanging out, zero load, barely any load onto them. Or like, why is it that people who still do the McGill Big Three or work on their glute meds and their glute mids and all these other exercises for accessory muscles, like, how come they still have to go and get hip replacements? Maybe there's some other underlying source going on here that isn't this whole idea of like wear and tear. And it's like, if this whole idea of increasing volume and intensity increases your wear and tear, and that's going to make things more rapidly progressing into these degenerative joint diseases. And then how come, like I've said several times now, people who lift a lot can feel great. People who lift a lot can feel like crap. People who don't lift at all and are very sedentary also feel like crap. The real world math doesn't add up there.
Yeah, totally agree. And this isn't deadlifting, but we have pretty good evidence now that running in particular, is protective of knee arthritis, hip arthritis, and even low back pain, which is completely counter to the conventional wisdom out there that running is going to wear out your cartilage and you're going to have more knee problems later in life. It is actually the opposite. I don't think we have evidence to say deadlifting is the same. It's more of like it makes sense based on the other research that we have. And the big underlying one that people should be aware of is a fundamental theory that physical therapists use to guide our decision-making process when it comes to your exercise selection and progression. It's a theory called the physical stress theory. It really just says that the tissues in your body, every single one of them, muscles, tendons, ligaments, bone, nerves, etc., they all respond and adapt to stress, meaning forces you impose upon them in some way. And all of your tissues are constantly changing, constantly. They're atrophying, they're getting weaker, they can be getting stronger, they can be getting hypertrophy, they can be getting injured. And then tissues also die is the fifth component of the physical stress theory. But your tissues need, I'm saying that word very deliberately, they need stress to grow and to thrive, because the whole purpose of your body, as far as we know evolutionarily, is just to keep you alive long enough to procreate. It doesn't care about how good you feel, how good you look. It just wants you to survive long enough. And so part of that process is conserving energy, because evolutionarily, calories weren't so abundant, and we had to make sure that you didn't waste energy keeping your body where it is. And so if you didn't stress tissues, you didn't use them in certain ways, your body would atrophy those tissues because they don't want to maintain how much muscle tissue you have, all that bone density. It's a lot of calories, it's a lot of raw materials and protein to maintain that stuff. And so it doesn't. You have to use your body in order for it to be strong, or for it to get better and be healthy. And if you don't, you're just in this constant state of atrophy, or just you use your body the same way every day, which is like sleeping kind of poorly, eating kind of poorly, going to work for your 8 hours or so, you got your commute. That's what your body gets really good at. And it doesn't have the capacity to do much more. You have lost it because you aren't doing it. And so when you have to go pick up your kid from the ground and they're 40, 50 pounds now, or you have to go move that couch, or you have to go mulch the garden beds for a couple hours. Like, this is where you get hurt because you are so out of shape and deconditioned. And the ideas that Peter Attia is kind of getting at, but especially Dr. Stuart McGill, they're, in my view, dangerous. They are harmful because you are setting people up to fail.
I think even more so on top of, just to add another layer onto what you're saying there, Christian, because I would agree. If you avoid certain things and then when you're asked to do it, kind of like you're saying there, you're setting yourself up to fail. And I mean that's like in like the PT world, that's a story old as time, right? It's the whole like, yeah, shoveled for the first time this year, shoveled my driveway from all that snow, and about 10 minutes into it, just felt a pop in my low back, and now it hurts. Everyone's like, oh, like, well, that's why you should never lift with your back. Like, you're gonna hurt yourself. And it's like, well, maybe if that individual maybe focused on doing some more, let's say Jefferson curls or deadlifting, or like bent over rows, or anything that's more of a functional position, like we do when we shovel snow or work in the garden or pick something up off the ground or whatever it is. Maybe if they spent more time adapting their tissues, like you're alluding to there, Christian, maybe they wouldn't have any issue shoveling the snow. And so the other thing I wanted to get to though was, I think it's really important as well that we listen to what our patients want, right? And I think this is the main argument as to why I said I wouldn't want to be a patient of McGill, because he, from what he tell when he tells his patient stories, it doesn't seem like he listens to what the patient wants. You know, he kind of tells them what they're gonna get, and what's good for them. And I think it's so important that we, like, what patients don't give a crap about, you know, exercising the rotator cuff muscles if they don't know how it's gonna help them in the long run, right? Like if you're doing some 90-90 external rotation, and they want to try and help get things off the top shelf, like that doesn't look at all like getting something off the top shelf. But if we can listen to their goals and then educate them on, like, this is why we're doing this exercise, or this is why we're doing this, or this is why this is important, or whatever it is, and then we bring in more of that trust and that motivation into the rehab setting. And I think that's super important. And I think that we shouldn't just limit that to this whole idea of like deadlifting or squatting, or making these movements kind of like taboo now. I think it's important that we continue to listen to our patients, and if they want to set a deadlifting PR that's relative to where they're at right now in their 50s compared to in their 20s, and then hell yeah, let's do that. Because guess what? If you can set a deadlifting PR and do it well, like, you're probably going to be able to do just about everything else in life pretty good.
I 100% support people wanting to set deadlift PRs at any age. And sometimes the answer isn't no, you can't do that. It's just not yet. Maybe we do have to work into other things first. And to be clear, when we say deadlift, I think we're mainly saying the barbell deadlift, but deadlifting can be done in any kind of way. There's kettlebell, dumbbell, banded, machines, doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. That stuff's freaking great for you. And especially like I think about folks as they get older. What do we know it takes to help people as they advance in age? They have to do resistance training to help their bone density, especially women. And if
Hmm.
you're telling these women to just walk backwards up a hill, what's that doing? It's not doing anything. So I actually want to pivot to that point now. Uh,
Yeah.
he suggested that folks don't deadlift. They instead do this like monster walk test where they walk backwards up a hill. And then he used the fact that they got tired from that as evidence that they should be working on that, and that's going to help them more. I genuinely do not understand how that is relevant. I don't know if that was just a
I
bad
don't either.
example, and I'll give him some grace
I
there.
don't. I don't either.
Yeah, but like let's just take it for what it is. Let's just assume that he meant that as an alternative. They're completely different tasks. It's not even like apples to oranges. It's like apples to steak. Like they're not even in the same freaking universe of the movements and how they're going to affect you. And I think partly
Hmm.
what he's getting at is that you need to have strong legs. Having strong legs is going to be protective of your back. And I don't disagree with that. I don't know if I have any evidence I can say definitively supports that, but like that makes some sense to me. You have strong legs. It's going to help make lifting things easier, whatever. But backwards walking up a hill, that is not a way that we move our bodies. It'll feel good on the knees if you have a knee problem, but it's not going to help your back. It's not going to reduce your risk of injury with lifting things. And it completely, even like thinking about it from the knee perspective, it doesn't even have an eccentric load on the knees. It's pretty much just concentric, which
Hmm.
we know can feel nice, but the whole point of trying to help prevent injury is to get people accustomed to impact force, to get them accustomed to eccentric loading, because that is where injuries occur. They almost never occur concentrically. They occur when you're trying to decelerate against gravity. And what he's advocating for just like doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it was one hell of a leap that he made there. I don't even know how you make these connections because there's several reasons why someone might get tired or fatigued walking backwards up a hill. Like it could be cardiovascular in nature. It could be, it could be stemming from the foot and ankle. It could be stemming from quads and hamstrings. It could be stemming from the glutes. It could be like pick a part of the body or a
Do
system in
that.
the body, and you could argue that like, oh, that's why you're getting fatigued out. And so like I don't know what type of objective measure that is, but I'm guessing he was talking about like yeah, we're testing your glute med and your glute min and all these like hip and pelvic stabilizers and all these other things. I'm guessing that's where he's pointing to being like, see, look at that, that's weak. That's the smoking gun. We have to work on this versus thinking about deadlifting. Like like yes, you can isolate the accessory muscles of the hip and the legs by doing very specific movements in like open chain, right? So moving your leg in the air and having some type of weight or band around it. Like you can definitely work that, but like what else also works? Hip accessory muscles. Like deadlifting works hip muscles. Deadlifting works the quads. Deadlifting works the hamstrings. Deadlifting works the lumbar paraspinals and the QL and all like pick a muscle. Maybe not the fibularis longus, maybe the fibularis longus. Like big muscles, they're probably being worked when you're doing a deadlift, you know? And so like why do we have to pick and choose between these things? We can do a deadlift and then we can follow that up with some, you know, sideline hip abduction or whatever you want to do. Like it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like we can do it all. And so this whole idea of like, having a fatiguing moment trying to walk backwards up a hill is indicative that if you deadlift, your back is going to explode and you're never going to play with your grandchildren again. That is just like an obscene jump from like A all the way down to Z, skipping every step.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think that we are saying that everyone must deadlift to be successful in life. I'm just saying that you should be picking heavy things up in a variety of ways, and some of those ways should be akin to what a deadlift looks like. because you want to make sure that you have some strength and some ability in those kinds of positions. And I know that Peter Attia and people like Jeff Cavalier and Stuart McGill all mean well. They're trying to help people, and I'm sure they do help people, but they really do overstep. They overstep, even Andrew Huberman, when it comes to the rehabilitation and like strength and conditioning fields. And I really truly think it comes down to they just do not see enough people. They have not had enough patience. They have
Yeah.
not failed enough times because if you, like Dr. Stuart McGill, firmly believe that you need to keep your spine rigid, avoid these movements, focus on the McGill Big Three, which is the curl up, the bird dog, and the side plank, and build those up over time. If that's your whole mindset around how to help people with low back pain, and you're so committed to that being the way, I don't think you know what you're doing because it just doesn't
Hmm.
work for everyone. It might work for a small fraction of people, but Eric, you and I do this every single day. I've been doing this for a decade. You've been doing it for going on 5 years. There are so
Yeah.
many times that we fail with clients giving them these types of things, or they are coming to us having done that stuff for years. And they're like, it's not working. I have more pain now than before. Things are getting worse. What do we do?
Yeah.
And so like if you can't have that kind of nuanced conversation, I just genuinely don't think you know what you're doing. Not saying I fully know what I'm doing, but like I'm pretty sure I know more than they do at this point, given what they're saying. And that's sort of I guess my point is like the things that they're saying are ludicrous to any physical therapist or chiropractor or physician who is in the field training people or working with people like this day in, day out. These thoughts are just
Yeah.
ludicrous. They do not make any sense.
Yeah. To your point about not seeing enough people, I would gladly love to get someone like Stuart McGill credentialed in the state of Minnesota and, have him come into the clinic for a week and see, a nice wide variety of chronic non-specific low back pain. And like, let's see what the success rate is by, preaching all these different ideas and instilling these fear-based, fear avoidance ideas into individual. Yeah, I think a part of it comes down to that because I think it can be really easy to look at, certain or really any research and, look at a research article or two and just be like, oh, this is going to work. This would work. Look at this research article. This would work. This would help people. We should do this. And then you go into the real world and you do that. And then you're like, shit, it doesn't work. It actually made them worse. It didn't work at all. Why didn't that work? And then meanwhile, you have a patient getting more and more frustrated with you because they feel like you're just wasting their time. And, and it's like now you just want to, crawl into bed and sleep for the next 5 days because you're like, I am terrible at my job. It's just the lack of not seeing people, but then going on podcasts and saying stuff like you see this all the time. And you see, like, if Stuart McGill worked with the most complex chronic pain, you know, kind of like like O'Sullivan's doing. O'Sullivan literally with his research trials he's not cherry picking the most easy low back pain patients. He's going to places that have like people who've had this chronic non-specific low back pain for years, decades, and he's doing cognitive functional therapy with them. And like he's actually seen not just 1 year, but after 3 year follow-ups, significant improvement in, things around pain. And it's like if Stuart McGill is doing that with the McGill Big Three and he was getting consistent improvement for long-term success, and then I would listen to a little bit more about what he's saying. But until that starts to be the case, I'm like probably gonna keep riding with O'Sullivan because he's actually showing things that work in the real world.
Well, and also, what percent of people are deadlifting to begin with on a
Like
consistent
in a
basis? I'm gonna
yeah,
say it's like yeah, people with low back pain. How many of them are actually deadlifting? Geez, like under 5%. How many of your patients have you seen in the last year that came to you because they deadlift and they hurt their back doing it? Almost zero. Almost zero. It's not happening. People hurt their back for all sorts of things, and rarely is it that. And so the fact that you're going to demonize that kind of movement in particular, I'm like, who are you seeing? Who's doing this? People I see that hurt their back, the back pain came out of nowhere, or they just started gardening too much all of a sudden, or they fell, or they freaking
Mhm.
bent over and twisted weird and felt a pop. I don't know, dude. Weird shit happens. They're
Yeah.
not barbell deadlift.
I have a I have a patient right now that his diagnosis was sent over as like failed back surgery. Like this guy's had back pain for decades and has seen countless physicians for it, pain medicine, neurosurgery. He's had surgery done and it did not work, made things worse. And like he showed up and like for people watching like the video, he walked like this. Like this is how he moved. Just this all the time. Like he never bent his back. And 2 visits ago, I was just like, hey man, why don't we just try bending our back a little bit? And so we were in sitting and I had him put his hands on his legs and just lean his chest over his knees a little bit and then come back up come back up to neutral. I just had him do that for a couple of minutes and he literally, without me even prompting him, he's like, I can't believe how good this feels. This is giving me so much relief to just bend over a little bit. And then our last visit, he was walking. I'm like, hey, why don't you just try swinging your arms? Because like you don't swing your arm. Your arms stay locked at your side. We just started swinging his arms. He started rotating his back a little bit, and like he was walking better. And he's like, oh, can't believe how good this feels. It kind of feels good to move. I'm like, dude, it's because your spine was made to do this, man. Like, and he's one of those individuals where like I don't think I'll be getting him under a barbell lifting, triple digit weights anytime soon. But like, would he be a good individual to start progressing to like maybe a sit to stand with like a resistance band under his feet or something? Like probably start working a little bit more on that like extremely light loading, but loading nonetheless and movement throughout that low back. And he's someone who's been told for years to keep your spine in neutral, you know, contract your abdominals whenever you can because you have to brace your core and protect your low back and like I'm not saying he's the poster child for how this goes. It's kind of like look where that got him. And then this whole idea of like neutral spine, bracing your core, all this stuff, demonizing things and telling them never to do things or telling them their back's gonna fall apart if they do this or that and that they have to only do these couple of things. Like that doesn't seem to work anymore.
And really, just the last point I'll make is what's happening to the low back pain numbers in this world? Are they going up or are they going down? Low back pain is getting worse. There are more people getting it.
Way
It's
worse.
more severe. It's staying around for longer. And the approaches like the abdominal bracing and the core stability stuff and the Stuart McGill big three type stuff, that's been around for decades and decades. Every single physical therapist and chiropractor knows that stuff. And every single one of us has done it at some capacity and still do to some capacity for sure, because it does have some merit some of the time. But are we really getting everyone better? Are those numbers going
Mm-hmm.
down? They're not. It's not working. Like, Jesus Christ, is it working or is it not? When you look at the freaking research on it, it's freaking not. And so, like, all right, maybe we should be like, okay, you really go one of two ways. Either we need to branch out and consider other alternatives for how to help people get better. And that's like Peter O'Sullivan's approach, and manual therapists and other practitioners of exercise who advocate for other kinds of movements like us. Like maybe we should be doing some deadlifting and should be doing some back grounding. Or you fall into the camp of, no, everyone just sucks at teaching people how to do core stability. Everyone sucks at exercise prescription. I know how to do it. I'm better at it. If you could only learn how to do it as good as I do, then you'll get the results that I get. And I'm like, great. Okay. How about you teach us? And how about you show me the outcomes of your clinic or your research group? Because if they really were that freaking good, you wouldn't be doing that work. You'd be a freaking billionaire traveling the
Yeah.
world, sharing your
Mm-hmm.
knowledge with all of us freaking idiots and peasants who don't understand how this works. And I just wish
Yeah.
more patients would learn that and not get so hung up on like, I'm not doing the right core exercises. I'm not strong enough yet. No,
Yeah.
it's not that.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, Fucking preach it, man. Yeah, I
What's my heart rate right now?